All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. Now, this is the third episode with the Sober Curious Yoga panel, which we've been having a lot of fun recording. So it's your Sober Curious Yoga teachers, Lee, who is in the States, and Jules and Matt, who are both in the UK, and then myself in Abu Dhabi. So welcome back, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Cool.
Great.
Needing a holiday?
Needing a holiday. Perfect lead into our theme for tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking about our experiences on our first sober vacations. And we were just chit-chatting before and found out that me and Matt both were having our first sober vacation in France, which is pretty cool, both in Paris. So Lee and Jules, where were your first sober vacations?
I think from what I can remember, I think it was about 2 months into being sober. I went away for a weekend in Wales, in the UK. And I can remember not having any clue as to what to drink. And at the time, I wasn't drinking any alcohol-free drinks. And I bought a load of elderflower, which, is nice, but after about 2 or 3 bottles of elderflower press, incredibly boring. So yeah, I think I felt a little hard done by. I've got to be honest. I do remember sort of thinking, well, what am I supposed to drink? This is my holiday. And even though it's a weekend away, my partner, he doesn't drink a lot, but he did have some wine. And I remember us having a really nice dinner. And I think I had like maybe soda water or something like that. And there was a little bit of, I think I was a bit nervous at the time to drink anything alcohol-free, like alcohol-free beer or anything like that, because I didn't want to get triggered. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think it wasn't really until about maybe 6 months later that I decided to drink alcohol-free drinks, which made it so much easier, like going away and having more choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mine, I guess it depends if you want to know if it was a successful sober vacation. My first attempt at a sober vacation was a failure. I was with a lot of friends and I tried. We all went to the grocery store. It was a ski trip. And I went to the grocery store and I bought myself alcohol-free beer. I don't think I got alcohol-free wine, but I know I got alcohol-free beer, and I felt very self-conscious about it. We were with 6 other couples, and I hadn't really told everyone that I was trying to go sober, and I wasn't like as committed to it as I am now. And I made it like through 2 or 3 days, and then I was like, screw it, I'm gonna drink. And I drank. I caved into the peer pressure. So that was a hard one. And then the next one that I did was a vacation with my family, and we went to Oregon backpacking, and I did go to the grocery store and buy alcohol-free wine and beer, and my son's also alcohol-free, so that made it a little easier because it was, and my family all knows that I'm doing this. So I had this support. I think my friends weren't like trying to sabotage me, but I felt myself self-sabotaging in the first one. So I think it's really important to pick who you go with.
Yeah.
Especially for your first time to go away, to have people who are really supportive to you and that you're not shy about telling that you're not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite interested that Jules actually brought up that you didn't drink alcohol-free drinks to start with. So you really switched the sort of, desire to drink alcohol away straight away. And that wasn't the case for me at all, actually. In fact, I probably had quite a few alcohol-free drinks, not as many, but I was quite interested to hear that. And I think, as you said, it depends who you go away with. And my 2 alcohol-free holidays, vacations that I've had have been with my wife and my kids, and that has probably helped a lot. Although, as we talked about in the previous podcast, I've been away with a big drinking party. But anyway, my holidays, my first one was in France. And that was last summer when we could somehow get away during these crazy times. And we went to France, and France would normally been somewhere I've gone to a lot before, and it would be a place to drink lots of wine,
Yeah.
a few beers. I do miss wine to an extent. I have to say, but last summer I can't even remember struggling with it, because I was in that kind of golden period of time where you're really going for not drinking, and photos of me, I look pretty great, actually. I have to say I was sort of 75, 80 days of not drinking, and I was in that real zone of this is the best thing ever. Not that I'm not now, but I was really going for it, So I found it really easy. We went to a Center Parcs kind of place. We went into Paris, and it was okay. It was actually really easy, and there were alcohol-free beers around, so I had a few of those. And actually, for me, alcohol-free beers are the revelation, because if you like beer, alcohol-free beers are a massive win, because they're so good. If I had known how good they were, or maybe years ago they weren't as good, but if I had known 2 or 3 years ago, I would have just been drinking those all the time, because I can't tell the difference. And actually, going on holiday this summer, we went just into the UK, and when we got to the Airbnb, there was a really nice bottle of red wine there as a gift to us. And at that point, I remember thinking, oh, I wonder what that's like. And then my wife had some, and I smelt it, and I hated the smell. I really didn't like the smell. It was the first time I'd smelt wine, and I was like, ugh, horrible.
Yeah, I've had exactly the same when we went to an Airbnb last year, and I hadn't smelt wine for however long, and really similar. They left us a bottle of wine, and there was this because that it's just such a lovely gesture.
Yeah.
And I remember pouring some out for Adam, and I thought, let's smell it, see what it smells like, and it just smelled like vinegar.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. So I don't think I'd smelt wine for like 6 months or whatever. And it really put me off. And I'm actually, that I'm pleased that it did, because again, I've really noticed, actually, just talking about it now, I think that's one of my triggers is going on holiday. I think I've gone to pubs and I've been fine. And I've gone to comedy nights and music gigs, I've been fine. I think holidays actually is a real big clincher for me, because it's that feeling of, now I can let my hair down, now I can have a break. I don't think I've ever been on holiday, and as an adult, where I haven't drunk. And not necessarily lots, but it's like, that's what you do. You go on holiday, and the first night is you open a bottle of wine, you buy a really nice bottle of wine, or you get given it as a gift. And then, the most of the holiday is not necessarily around drinking, but it's a massive part of it. And I don't think I sort of realised until reflecting on it now that it's like, actually, every single holiday or break that I've had, wine has been a massive part of it. And now that I've gone on a couple of little weekend breaks and holiday breaks, it's trying to shift not just the drink, but also the mindset of what are the important things that I do. And I remember my last holiday, which I know that I actually did quite a few yoga classes, and one of the yoga classes I did when I was in the car, which because I knew that I needed to have a structure when I was on holiday. And one of the most important things was about doing my sort of daily practice and doing my daily yoga practice and trying to find places to do that. And the only place I could do it was in the car. So Alex was teaching me yoga in the car.
That's a different podcast, car yoga.
Car yoga, that'll be our next podcast.
But I think that's really true, Jules, what you said about shifting your mindset. Yeah. It's like shifting your mindset around what's fun, what's relaxing for you. Yeah. Finding different things that are relaxing than wine, because wine, the association for me is wine, or like for me, like the association of after skiing, the après ski beer and finding a replacement for that, the association of, going to a pool and having a cocktail is a really big one. I think that is hard to let go of and think, what am I going to have instead? And so it's really important to plan ahead and think, what are the things I'm going to do for my relaxation? And what are the things I'm going to do for fun? And what are the things I'm going to do that fill me up versus using alcohol as that crutch? And I remember when I first started being alcohol free and thinking like about being in Italy, sitting on like a terrace with a nice, what are those drinks that have the orange liquor in them in Italy that they serve at Aperol Spritz. An Aperol Spritz, and having an Aperol Spritz at like by the water, and that just seems so romantic, the whole idea of it to me. And I think I would be just as happy sitting on that terrace in the beautiful setting with a mocktail or with some kind of a fancy drink. It doesn't have to be alcohol. But it's not necessarily the alcohol that creates the relaxation. It's the setting and who you're with. So thinking about what's fun. And I also think like for my vacation, we planned like a backpacking vacation. So it was like adventure and doing something fun, adventurous that took it away from the focus on alcohol. So planning the activities, and I don't know, like in Paris, maybe it's going to museums or, a walking tour, or looking at architecture or whatever, it could be different things, but thinking of other things than sitting in that place, drinking the wine.
Yeah. So for my trip to Paris, it was my first trip that I had planned being alcohol free, but I actually planned it before I had quit drinking. And the reason why I did it was because, traveling between North America and the Middle East, often I would stop over in Europe. And so it was a stopover between like my trip to Canada and then my trip back to Abu Dhabi. And I actually didn't want to go. I actually thought about canceling the trip because I was going to be by myself. And I was like, I just don't think I can do Paris without a glass of wine in my hand. Like, I don't think it's going to be possible. And then the funny thing was, so when I was in Morocco, I was with my mom way before I quit drinking. And we met this Parisian man in the Sahara Desert, like this guy that lived in Paris. And he was like, at the time, I thought he was so boring, right? I was like, he's this physics professor who just wants to talk about art and he doesn't really drink and he's so boring. And he said, oh, you're coming to Paris, stay at my house, like with me and my mom. And I'm like, oh my God, that would be the most boring vacation ever. And then he ended up reaching out to me and being like, do you want to stay with me? And it was like the most perfect thing because he was like not really a drinker. And he had spent his whole like young adulthood just kind of traveling the world and like meeting random people. He had been to like hundreds of countries. So he just wanted to like, pass on the favor and like tour me around. So he had planned this whole itinerary. He had booked all the museums and, it was like a 3-hour thing. Cause he just wanted to tell me about like all the history of every piece of art. Cause like that was what interested him. And it ended up being like the best vacation of my entire life. Like oh my God, it was amazing. And I told him beforehand, I was like, I don't drink. And he's like, yeah, I don't really like to drink either. And then there was just like no alcohol at all the whole vacation. And at the end of the week, I was like, this was the best week of my life. And I was so happy that I didn't cancel it. But it's like who you're around, right? It was just luck that I ended up with this guy. But if I had been with like a group of my friends that were like more interested in like partying in Europe, I might have ended up drinking. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You said that was the best vacation of your life. And there's an interesting point that I've thought about, is that these 2 vacations that I've been on, I actually came back refreshed from them. Whereas holidays before, when you're drinking, I'm sure you guys will agree, you're recovering when you get back.
Yeah.
Right. Because I typically would, I'd have a drink at lunchtime, probably have to have another one because I had this silly idea that if I have one drink, it's not enough and it makes me sleepy. And then you sort of wasted some afternoons and then you're drinking in the evenings. I'd come back quite lethargic and not relaxed. And too tired after being on holiday, which is crazy. Whereas this has not happened to me the last 2 holidays, with not drinking. So that's quite interesting to reflect on.
Yeah, definitely. I remember coming back from vacations, or like when the vacation ending, thinking like, how am I going to go to work? Because I'm used to starting drinking at like 11 or 12 in the morning, like breakfast, Bloody Marys at breakfast, beers on the beach, wine with lunch, wherever it was.
So was there anything about vacation that worried you ahead of time, like other than what we've already talked about?
No, I don't feel like anything really worried me. I don't, because I think it's depending on who I was going away with. I'm going on a holiday next year where I'm going away with my wife's parents, and we're going to an all-inclusive place, and that will be more of a challenge, I think. For this one, because where we're staying this summer, I didn't feel worried about it.
Not a holiday, I suppose, because I've just taken lots of weekend trips. We've got a trip coming up in a couple of weeks, actually, which I'm a little bit nervous about. So we have a group of friends that from my partner's university days. They're all in their sort of late 40s and 50s, and the original plan was to go clubbing, which I laughed for about 20 minutes, and my partner laughed for about 20 minutes. And given that we're in our sort of late 40s, early 50s, the sort of going clubbing makes me, completely want to just laugh a lot. But we actually have a weekend coming up, and whenever we see this group of people, they're all gorgeous, they're all lovely people, but whenever we see them, there's a lot of drinking. And the last time we all went away for the weekend, we went up to London and spent the whole entire weekend drinking, and I haven't met them without drinking. So actually, and it's interesting, so even though I'm coming up nearly to 2 years, it's still actually something that makes me feel nervous. And I don't think it really hit me. I think because I've been only on holidays or breaks with my partner, who's not really a big drinker, our activities that we do are very much similar to what you were saying, Matt. It was very sort of action-packed, and we were doing activities and very sort of, child orientated, because my partner's got children. But actually, this is going to be a weekend away, and I think most of the activity is going to be based in the pub. And so I think what I need to put in place is a plan. So whenever I do anything which makes me feel a bit nervous or worried or a bit overwhelmed, I put a plan together. And for me, because I'm quite introverted within a group setting, what I used to do was just get drunk, because I couldn't really cope with being around lots of people. And if I drank, then it meant that I could, what I thought was confidence, which was actually, just basically a smokescreen. So I think even though I'm quite, as I said, like coming up to 2 years sober, it's still something that I need to work on. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I take for granted. It's not something that I just suddenly go, oh, I'm 2 years sober, I don't have to worry about alcohol anymore, and I don't have to worry about social settings. I still do. I still think that I was listening to Laura McCowan podcast this afternoon, and she's 7 years sober, and she was saying about it's like not taking it for granted, and that there's always new unveiling, and there's always new things that you learn about yourself. And she's realised that she's got sober, she's become more introverted, and I realised that actually I much prefer either being on my own or being like one-to-one with people. So going on holiday, even though it's for a weekend, I can see it now. My hands are going, ooh. I'll put a plan together, and I hope that I'm at a place now where I have the confidence to be assertive, to go, I'm going to leave now, because I don't really want to stay up late in a pub till 11 o'clock with lots of people drinking. It's not something that interests me anymore. And again, it's that reasserting myself. And when I used to drink alcohol, I wouldn't have. I'd have just got drunk and pretended I was fine with it. Whereas now I can't pretend. If I'm in a social setting and I'm feeling uncomfortable, then it's about plucking up the confidence and putting on my big girl pants and saying, actually, I'm going to go now, because my need to take care of myself and my need to actually have rest time and downtime is really important. And being on holiday is rest time and downtime.
Right.
So yeah.
Is your husband or your partner, is he willing to like leave at the same time as you, or how does that work?
Yeah, he'd be very supportive. And I've already worked out that the pub is nearby the bed and breakfast place that we're staying. That was one of my requirements, was when we go out, can we be close to where we're staying, so that if I need to leave, I can go. Because I've been in situations where I've been stuck when I'm somewhere and lots of people are drinking, and I'm stuck in that situation. I can't leave, and that for me is just not a good thing. Then I end up hiding in the toilets, or in the past getting very drunk because I couldn't cope with it. Yeah. Whereas now it's like, okay, so what do I need to put in place to take care of me? And I think that that doesn't stop. I think that that's something that carries on, and you keep putting those things in place for yourself.
I like the way you said that there's various unveilings of, a sober journey. And I think that's so true, because there's so many similarities between going on holiday and meeting up with friends. I've been invited to a surprise 40th birthday tomorrow. And for quite a while now, I've just decided I'm not going to go, because I'm just worried that, there's a lot of drinking there. And not that I will drink, but just that, I don't know, there's still the worry you don't have as much fun and people talk about it. And, and I think, but you do become more introverted. So, if you're going on a holiday with lots of people or away for a weekend, it's that social dynamic, isn't it? It's the fact there are other people there drinking. If I was going away with 20 people and they're all not drinking, it's a different story. So,
right.
Yeah, it's going to take a long while, isn't it, to not think about it and have to have a plan in place.
It's that tribe mentality, isn't it? Like, we go on a walking holiday every year. I don't feel like that, because like half people that go on that walking holiday aren't drinkers or not very big drinkers, and actually the holiday is about walking. So we're mostly too exhausted to get drunk.
Right.
Or if people do drink, it's not the highlight of the weekend. Whereas the weekend we're going on, I know that it's going to be that's the massive part of it. And it's also, that it just isn't something that interests me. I'm that isn't something that I do anymore. If someone said, do you want to go away for the weekend and practice yoga and dance and walk and, stare at the moon as it goes down on the beach, I'd be like, yes, please. But if someone said, do you want to spend a whole weekend in the pub sitting there getting pissed, I'd be like, no.
Yeah,
our interests change, don't they? And I think our interests change, and what we want to do changes as we're, getting to more of a sober life. And, going back to my sort of invitation to go out tomorrow night, I just don't feel like I want to go.
Yeah.
I just can't be bothered. It doesn't interest me. I'm more excited to go and do hot pod yoga instead. That's it.
One of my favorite vacations used to be going on this houseboat trip with my friends. And it was drinking from morning till night, and getting several people would end up getting sick during the trip, throwing up from, too much alcohol. And the thought of doing that again made me very nervous. I was like, how would I ever do that? And I was so thankful that actually it just didn't happen because of COVID this past it was always in the fall, like right around this time. It was about a month ago, and we haven't done it 2 years in a row. And I kind of relieved that we haven't had to do that, because my choices for vacation now are much different, right? Like doing more hiking or something outside or with my family. I'm happy to go away with friends still. I just don't want to, like you guys are saying, like spend the whole time around people who are drinking from morning till night and having to negotiate that.
So you're ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous idea, isn't it? That you go away and people are getting sick from drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, what a dumb thing to do. Why would anyone want to do that? Oh
gosh. And it would take like the whole week to recover from that trip, like just 2 or 3 days of just feeling so sick afterwards.
Yeah. I did like the ultimate, you know how everyone wants to like backpack around Southeast Asia in their like 20s. I did that ultimate trip like right before I got sober. And I look back on it and I'm just like, oh my God. Like I had like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. I would like miss touring cities because I would be asleep in like a hostel bed. Like on every drive, I was just like asleep on the person beside me. Like I look back and I'm like, that was not a good trip. Like I don't remember learning anything. I didn't really like any of like the people I was we would just get drunk and fight. And I'm sure they were lovely people. Like I'm sure they would have been lovely had we like, you know, spent sober time together. But, you know, it wasn't like lifelong friends or anything. Like, you know, I met them all and then said goodbye at the end of the trip and sort of never saw them again. Actually, one of them is lovely. She joins the Mindful Life Practice community, but she was not doing the drunk revelry. That's Shayla, who does our class. She was one of the more sober folks that I really should have spent time with. But honestly, I look back and I'm just like, I don't know why that was like the peak thing I was looking forward to, because I would have gotten so much more out of it had I been sober, I think.
No, I think it is that thing, isn't it? Changing the mindset of what a holiday is.
Yeah.
What is a holiday now? Because when I was younger, my holidays were, as you said, it was like getting drunk and having crazy nights. And I don't regret that, because I had some brilliant times, like absolutely top times, and also some awful times. But on the whole, I've got to say, I look back, maybe with beer goggles, but I do look back and just go, I did have some crazy wild times.
Yeah.
I went on honeymoon to San Francisco and met the most craziest people. I met people in bars that I'd never meet. And I actually met, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, Bobby Brown, Whitney Houston's ex-husband, and I drank Grey Goose vodka and spent the night the night chatting with Bobby Brown. And we met some alien spotters. So it's like, you know, there were some amazing times, and I genuinely had some absolutely fantastic evenings that, who knows if I'd have had drinks with Bobby Brown if I was sober. True. Maybe not. But I know now, for me, that isn't what I want. I don't regret doing any of those things, because that's just part of my tapestry. It's part of my history. But where I'm at now, I want something different. I want holidays which I'm present in. Yeah. And I want holidays which, as you said, I'm learning stuff or experiencing and trying things maybe that I wouldn't usually try. But I want to leave a holiday feeling rested and having some like restorativeness and refreshingness. And I just wouldn't have that if I was drinking. So I think my mindset has shifted, and my interests and my needs have changed, you know, in the wider picture, but also in what I do in my holiday time as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think it's like the wasted hours, isn't it? You know, and when we talk about what sober vacations are like, we're obviously, all of us are reflecting on what they were like before. Right. And I just think of the number of hours I wasted. Whereas last year in France, I remember getting up at 6 every day and doing yoga. I was doing yoga with the MLPC, actually. I'd started that off and it was amazing. And I was up at 5:30 in the morning doing yoga and just doing 2 or 3 hours of stuff before my family woke up, which was brilliant. And so I look at all those extra hours I gained on holiday, and those week-long holidays now feel like a proper week instead of half a week, because so much time was wasted. And yeah, I remember, like you, Jules, I do remember so many fun times. I really do. But I do regret some of the wasted hours, I have to say. And, you know, I can't get away from that now. Yeah, it's about making the most of the ones that come, I suppose, now.
And I think it's about, like, I just was listening to Glennon Doyle's We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and she was talking about bravery and bravery being like those internal choices that you make for yourself that don't go with what everyone else wants to do. And so when you have a bunch of friends saying, oh, let's go on a ski vacation and we'll all rent a house together, or like, let's do the houseboat and I'll do this together, and you know that it's going to be drinking, it's like, is that really the choice I want to make? And within myself, it's a brave decision, I think, to say, no, I think I don't really want to do that for vacation. Yeah. Maybe I want to do something that's better, that's going to fill my cup more and not going with the flow of what everyone else wants to do. So if you know you're going to get boxed into that kind of scenario where you're in a place with all people who are drinking, or if there's going to be some situation that's going to trigger you, or it's not going to be filling for you, find some other way to spend your vacation. And it's okay to say no in that situation and do something different.
I think you're so right. It's courage. It really is. It's courage to take a different way of being and take a different life. And you know, there is that herd mentality. And I know that when you're younger, there's most probably more pressure. But even as you're older, I still feel it from a lot of people. There is why do you practice yoga? Why do you do all those things? You know, a lot of friends think maybe that what I do is selfish as opposed to self-care. There's always that little subtext with people when they know that I do yoga, and it's like, but these are things that I do to take care of myself. I don't have any judgment about what other people do. I like whatever people do to relax. That's brilliant if it helps you to relax. But I know for me, at the end of the day, alcohol doesn't help me relax. It doesn't help me anymore. And what people choose to do for their holidays or their rest time or relaxation time, it's like you do you. But I know for me that what I need, you know, healthy things in my life, because it helps me to feel better about myself. It helps my mental health. It helps my well-being. And I really do think my holiday time now, I treat it as a bit of a retreat. It's like, what can I do to get the most rest? Because I need to have it so that I can go back into, you know, work and go back into family situations and feel resilient. And especially during COVID, it's like rest and recuperation time is like, I think the 101 most important thing to do, because you know, we've got so much pressure on us during this time. So any little times that we can have as a break, as in a holiday, we need to make the most of it. And holidays and rest time now, even if it is a day or a weekend, you know, or if you get to have a week off, it's like making the most of that time.
For me, like planning out the vacation so it is more of a retreat and restorative thing instead of going along with the plans that someone else makes. You know, that they have different priorities than what mine. What were you going to say?
The thing is that as we are sober now, and we're a long way into our journeys, we are much more in tune with looking after ourselves. And this is actually true. Why I did last summer when I went on holiday, and I don't think I did it really when I was drinking. I've started taking my pillow with me when I go away. So I've been on 2 holidays. And I've also been away for the couple of weekend stuff, but I now take my pillow with me, and I take my little light, my Lumi light that lights up in the morning and goes down at night. So I take those things with me to make sure that, you know, I have a good night's sleep. And I didn't do that when I was drinking. There's almost that acceptance that it's going to be, you know, a crap night's sleep. I'm drinking, I'm in a different bed, you know, the sleep's terrible. Now I'm so in touch with, you know, what makes me feel good in my body that I'm trying to recreate that sort of home experience when I go away. So, and actually, I know the British cycling team started doing that years ago, and loads of athletes do that. They take their own pillows with them. In fact, they take their own beds with them. Like if I could take my bed with me on holiday, I would do that. I would never bother about that. It's true. They take their bed with them around the world. And it's actually true, because they want to have the best night's sleep. And if I could do that, I would do that. And I did not care about that when I was drinking.
No.
There's an acceptance that you're going to feel like crap on holiday. And when you're away, it's just not as good. And that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I definitely bring all my journals and my poetry books and the affirmation books that I read from every morning as part of my daily routine. I bring all of those with me. I have a backpack. I have like 5 books that I read like a little section from each day. And I do that when I'm on vacation. And my
You need to take
essential
your
oil.
pillow.
I would, if you're on a plane, it's a little bit harder, but I do like my essential oils though to sleep with, and I bring those with me too.
I've got my little essential oil here that I put on actually before we started. This is bergamot and Calabrian. And exactly as you said, I have like a little ritual that I have. So
Yeah.
I put this on my pillow at night, and I always take it with me if I go on holiday anywhere. And I have like rituals that I do in the morning. So I put a joss stick on, and I do my morning pages, and I do my journaling, and then I do my meditation. So when I went on holiday up in Cumbria a couple of months ago, I was carrying that on, and I did, I got up at 6, did my morning pages, did my yoga meditation, and my partner and his children were like, but you're on holiday, why are you doing that? And it was like, well, this helps me.
Yeah.
It helps me to carry on. And it's like, actually not doing it is not a holiday. It's like, actually that, it doesn't mean I'm incredibly strict that I don't let go, but for me, it's like it sets up the day. And as you said, Matt, it's like I've got those 2 hours extra that are mine, that I don't have to be in parent mode, and I don't have to be doing anything that anybody else wants to do. I have 2 hours that are my time. And that's like having a mini holiday in itself. That's 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning. That's my time to do whatever I need to set me up for the day. And then I'm able to be more boundaried, and I'm able to support other people and their needs, because I've already met my needs. I've already got what I needed to
it's a holiday within a holiday, isn't it? Basically, you created a holiday and a holiday, and I definitely relate to that. And those 2 or 3 hours in the morning, I was up in the north of England in the summer, and I just got out every morning. I didn't not get up early. I didn't have any extra laying or anything, because I'm content with how much sleep I'm getting, so that's all sorted. So when I'm on holiday, I don't feel the need to have to sort of lay in bed, and I want to get up and do stuff and have that break within a break.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about the mindful life practice too. Like I have been on so many vacations where I've joined in sober circle meetings and joined yoga classes, and you can just bring your computer or your phone and join in. I remember doing that at Mount Hood last summer, and that was the first vacation that I went on, and I joined Sober Circle from Mount Hood in that hotel, and it was awesome. And my family was all sleeping, and I just got up early and went and joined the Sober Circle, and it helped me to connect with people who were also sober and in the same mindset.
Yeah.
And it's so great having it all on Zoom that it's so portable. You can just
we've had people obviously coming and doing yoga when they're on business trips away, instead of like going to the hotel bar, do some yoga in your room instead. So, things like that are great.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was just say, I remember, Lee, when you joined that Sober Circle, because I remember you were in a lodge, and a man came over who worked there and was like, I'm sober too.
Yeah.
Yes. In the middle of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm
Go ahead, Matt. I was going to say that this doesn't come across well if you're listening to the podcast, but as we're being videoed as well, me and Jules are gradually disappearing as the light goes. And I'm struggling to see myself on the screen.
I was actually noticing that it got darker in your background, Matt, before Jules's. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
So when we don't get as dark as early.
How many hours away are you guys from each other?
I don't know. How far away is Bristol? Like maybe 3 hours?
That's so interesting.
But we're not like one of us is not more south than the other, really. I don't think.
Where does they sunset?
I think it's just because I'm in the conservatory, so I've got windows everywhere, so it's most probably just that little bit lighter.
Oh, maybe. Okay. Because I was like, that is the strangest thing. Okay. I have one more question for everyone. What advice or wisdom would you give to someone if they're going on their first sober vacation?
Take your own pillow with you. No. I mean, it's like Jill said, prep for it,
plan
who you're going with, what the trigger's going to be, what was it like before, if it's a similar thing, if it's, what are you going on holiday for, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when I went away this time, I also checked out some of the local pubs to find out, as I would if I was going out for the evening, because I knew we were going out for dinner. So I checked out some of the local pubs, and there were some yummy, really yummy, like locally brewed alcohol-free beers. So again, as you would if you were going out for a night, it's like, where are you going, and planning and inquiring as to what drinks they have. And also, I think the more that we ask pubs what alcohol-free drinks they have, the more that they'll realise there's a demand. Because, I think actually most pubs now I've been to do have alcohol-free drinks. Not many, but at least they've got something. But the more that we ask, the more that they'll actually start realising that there's more of a demand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And watch who you're going with in the first place. And if you are going with people that are going to be drinking, I think letting them know that you're trying to do this alcohol-free thing is helpful, even though it feels a little awkward.
Yeah.
Eliciting support from friends is very helpful.
And I think you were rightly with the whole sort of the sober circle. So maybe taking some support with you in your pocket when you're away.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as if you were going out for the evening, you might have an alcohol-free buddy that you might have online or in the real world just to connect with. I think when you're on holiday, I think every time that I've been on holiday, I've had some kind of connection with a community group that is predominantly online. But again, it just means that I can just check in with people just in case I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed or triggered or a little bit like I don't know what to do. And just you can ask others for advice. Or even if you don't, it's just nice to know that you've got allies. I think it's nice to know that there are other people who are a similar path to you.
Yeah, and I also brought Quitlet with me to read on the plane, and I, especially in the beginning, I was reading Quitlet books and also listening to sober podcasts or whatever in the beginning, just getting that support and kind of, it's like wallpapering your mind with sobriety.
Yeah.
So that's what you think of is sober stuff, and that's how you want to live. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love that wallpapering your mind with sobriety. I think you've just done the best quote ever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Instagram that quickly before she puts it back.
I would say the other thing that I did was treats. So I always used to equate alcohol with a treat. So my treats now are slightly different. So one of the things I did was we booked a weekend away, and the first thing I did was checked it had a jacuzzi. That's my treat now. So it's like giving myself a reward, and my reward used to be alcohol, and now my reward is a massage. So I booked a massage when I've been away.
Book a massage.
So it's that thing of, that's what I equate now with a holiday, is like a bit of luxury.
Yeah. Find ways to appreciate the beauty of where you are, get up for the morning sunrise, go get outside.
Yeah, see bits of the day that you didn't used to see on holiday. That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, Matt and Lee and Jules, this was so fun. Another amazing panel episode. I don't know if you guys saw on Instagram yesterday, actually, I had posted, or the other day I posted our little panel clip, and someone commented saying you should do sober travel next.
Oh, that's so funny.
And here we go. So here's our sober travel episode. So if anyone listening has any topics or suggestions, we finished our 3 that we had planned. So let us know, DM us or comment. And hopefully we'll be back for more with another panel soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.